Well, here we are deep in the Ardennes for the second round of this 2024 FIM EWC Endurance Championship. It is, of course, Spa-Francorchamps, a circuit that needs no introductions. 6.985 kilometers and a track that has returned to this EWC calendar after the modifications in 2022. Do not adjust your screens. The sun is shining. It's a lovely spring summer's day here in Belgium. And we're all set for what will be an action-packed 8 hours here at Spa-Francorchamps. Of course, the last 2 years have seen 24 hours, but here we are at this iconic circuit for a shortened race, but there will be no shortage of action. My name is Tom Gaymore, alongside me, Simon Patterson.
I think we're in for a thriller today. I think, obviously, you know, there's a long history of 24-hour races at Spa, but the prospect of seeing a bit of an 8-hour endurance sprint around here instead, and listening to a few of the teams talking about how it's changed their strategy, changed their approach to it, changed their tactics, I think we're going to see a good one. I'm quite looking forward to this.
Yeah, one team that hasn't changed their approach or changed their tactics, the Yamaha squad. They were as wickedly fast in qualifying as we expect them to be, but there is a bit... well, there's
Niccolo,
a bit of a change.
how exciting that you
we'll
guys
from
are
Caroline
in pole
now.
position and you broke the lap record here.
Yeah, it feels amazing because we won last year the 24 hours. We're in pole position here, so we're the #1 on the bike, so no pressure for today.
And good luck with your shoulder.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very tough track. This one is very physical, very demanding, and I'm struggling more than Le Mans, so it's going to be a bit tough for me, but I try my best, and I know that my teammates are super fast, so we will try our best to be in front.
Good luck.
Thank you.
The focus still on Nicolo Canepa's shoulder, but it didn't hold him much back at all in Le Mans.
I mean, he was very much the fastest guy in that team there. So interesting to see that he's saying that it's causing him maybe more problems here than it was at Le Mans. Says quite a bit about the physicality of the Spa track. You know, all that elevation changes, all those fast corners, all those fast changes of direction, which...
Well, Xavier Simeon is down on the grid at the FCC TSR Honda box.
Alan, you will start now the race. The temperature is quite hot. You will ride only by 2 riders, but you show a very strong pace during the practice and qualifying. You think it will be okay by 2 riders?
Yeah, 2 riders, it's okay. Sure, it's a little bit more hard than 3 riders, but the condition is coming out and the tire working well in this condition. We know our pace and we know we are stronger. Now we need to pass stint after stints, and after we know where we are, but we are stronger.
Very good luck, Alan.
The big talking point down at FCC TSR Honda, no Mike D'Amelio. He injured himself in a French Superbike round at Nogaro last weekend.
Yeah, they've had a busy week, the FCC TSR team. No Mike D'Amelio because of a big crash in that round where I think he landed on his hip and bruised it quite badly and is still in a lot of pain, so isn't here. And then their other rider, Joshua Hook, became a father for the first time on Friday morning, so I think he's had about as much sleep as he would during a 24-hour race, so not exactly the perfect preparation.
Well, let's have a look back at what happened at Le Mans with Greg Black.
Second on the grid. A lot of pressure because what happened in 2023 with the crash in the first turn, but I managed to get a good start and being the lead of the race.
At the beginning of the stint, I was with Karel and we fight directly. It was cool because we pushed a lot during all the stint, and yeah, it was a good part of the race. Yeah.
That's my crash. Obviously, we had a technical issue with the dash on the bike, with the resetting of fuel. So I tried to reset by myself the system, and doing that I turned off the traction control, which I didn't see because the dash was blocked on an image, so I had no possibility to see that. I got back on the bike on the outside of the track and managed to bring it back in the pits.
We can make the difference now during the night, because the bike work good, tires work perfectly, and you can push a lot.
I think I'd gone to get change or go to physio, and I remember seeing that the bike was in the box, and a little bit of panic. Oh no, the bike is in the box, what's the problem? And then they say on the radio that it was just a quick maintenance stop, and then when I see Greg return to the track, okay, I calm down again. I love this part, when you are like this, adrenaline ready, wait for the fuel. So it's such a great feeling. So I check the fuel cap is fitted correctly onto the tank. Sometimes it can be loose, so I bang it, make sure it's right. With the left hand, I'm adjusting the front brake. Greg and Etienne use the front brake a little bit closer to the handlebar, so I like to wind the front brake out so that the lever is a bit further away from the handlebar, so that I can be comfortable with my hand feeling on the brake.
It's the moment we want to be at. From the start of the race, that's the only thing we're thinking about is Sunday, 3 o'clock. For all the last around about 20 laps I did, I was just like trying to economise the bike, shifting the gears early, not really braking, trying to be really careful, avoiding any problems, just looking at the clock go down and just hoping there's no issues before the end of the race, because you know the bike has been turning for 24 hours. So yeah, I mean, third victory here at Le Mans, it's a great moment.
What a complete performance that was by Yoshimura Cert at what is their home circuit, Simon. It was very, very dominant. And they have a point to prove this year after losing that World Championship plate.
I mean, it's kind of the textbook, you know, how endurance racing goes, isn't it? It was a bit of a tortoise and a hare race all the way through in Le Mans. There's a couple of little mistakes. They had that little crash early on in the race, but just kept chipping away at it. They're so good whenever you see them in the pits. You know, whenever those guys come into the garage, everything works like a well-oiled machine. There's so much experience. They made up all the time they needed there and just kept everything under control. It means that they come into this, you know, not necessarily the fastest at Spa and not necessarily the best suited to 8-hour races, as opposed to the 24-hour races where all that experience really makes the difference in the box. But they're not going to be far away at all. And
for the likes of Dan Linford, that must give him a real positive boost.
I mean, what a perfect first experience of really high-level endurance racing for him. He's come in, the team has just worked super well around him, and they got the result in the end.
Well, qualifying was held yesterday. Perfect conditions for the riders as they fought for that all-important track space once it went green. Superstock pole, new team for 2024, Team Etoile. The Japanese squad with a French name, all Japanese lineup, of course, based not too far from Le Mans, and it was that machine that conquered this Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Out front, it was a titanic battle for the EWC honours. Yamaha, FCC, TSR Honda and Yoshimura Cert going for glory. The big hitters slugging it out. Yoshimura Cert would end up third, with FCC TSR Honda really pushing the Yamaha Austrian squad, or Austria squad I should say, to that top spot. In the end, it was Yamaha that stole pole position away from the Japanese team. Looking very quick. Nicolo Canepa, Marvin Fritz and Karel Haneke with that #1 board. And they will have a clear view down to that first hairpin La Source. Very short run down to the first corner here. So it's really important that you maximise your starting grid. Here is the Japanese team, and they give a real sort of international flavour to this World Championship.
It's been really nice over the last few years. We've slowly saw this, you know, what has traditionally been a super French-dominated championship become a little bit more international. It's great to see a fast Japanese team using German machinery as well. You know, it really adds another flavour to it.
Caroline
Kazgi,
de
you are in
Moraes
pole position for the
up
Superstock
next.
category. The sun is shining. How excited are you for this race?
Yeah, I'm nice to back to here in Spa. Last year was 24 hours, and then this year 8 hours sprint race. So I'm looking forward to do the race as we have the speed. For example, in the good example in the qualify. So I think we can make a good race, and you know, this is the endurance race for me. For me, it's the first time endurance in for this season. Yeah, quite excited. Yeah.
Well, listen, good luck, and thank you for speaking to me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that Team Etoile bike lining up 10th on the grid overall. But all smiles at Yamaha. They have a clear view to La Source. And over the years, they haven't always maximised that pole position, clutch issues and getting the bike started and all sorts, Simon. They'll be needing to be on their game. Of course, with the 8-hour race, you can't afford to have any mistakes at all, never mind a crash.
This isn't going to be like Le Mans, where we saw Sert have that crash and regrip and still get back on the top of step of the podium. There's so much less time to recover time here if you have an issue. We saw Yacht make a great start last time out in Le Mans. But yeah, it's been an area where traditionally they've had a bit of a weakness. You would presume that means it's somewhere that they've drilled, somewhere that they've worked technically to get, you know, clutch right, to get the feeling that the riders are getting from the clutch right. But as it stands right now, it's probably the biggest unknown for them early on in the race.
Top three in the Stockers at the moment. Vocek behind Team Etoile, and then the Honda No Limit squad just ahead of National Motors. Of course, National Motors, a team that needs no introduction. The endurance stalwarts, if you like, in this Superstock class.
Yeah, long time Honda-backed team in this championship who switched quite a few years ago now from the main EWC class to Superstock, and have really become the benchmarks in that class within a class sense.
Well-known leadership in Paris, of course. Grid starting to clear here in the sunshine at Spa-Francorchamps. Let's go round a lap of this circuit.
Spa, just if you say Spa, I think about it and you get goosebumps.
Spa is such a special circuit, I think, for everybody, because it's such a historic track.
It's a high speed, very high speed track, which suits my riding style. This track is like insane, and all the blades around. And for me the most special is when you are on top on the track and from one part you see all the track.
I remember a couple of years ago, it was my first time ever after playing hundreds of hours on the video games in this track, and finally to get there with a bike has been something incredible. I was so excited. I'm 35 years old, but I was excited as I was 18. I still remember now the first laps that I did there on the track, and I was shocked for how fast is it, how technical, complete track is it.
You do the Eau Rouge, which is an amazing section, the big long straight into the forest, and it's such a challenge. The circuit is a great challenge. Fast flowing corners, which for every rider, we love fast flowing corners. It gives such an adrenaline rush.
Well, you need to be quite brave. You need to convince yourself sometimes that that corner can really be taken that fast, like a Rédillon. You really need to convince yourself every lap to keep it pinned in the downhill, and even Blanchiment coming in through sixth gear. Yeah, it needs a lot of commitment, and that is something that makes this track extra tough for all of the riders.
That view gives you a real indication of the elevation. So that is as the bikes run up through Eau Rouge, through Radion, up to Le Camp, and then you've got that sort of Bruxelles downhill hairpin, the double left at Pouhon. And we're looking there down at the grid. Lots of elevation here around this circuit, and it's hopefully on a day like this not going to be realized that it can be raining at one end of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit and not at the other. Makes tire decisions, compounds, whether or not you double stint riders, very, very tricky. The rain can come in, the weather can come in very rapidly indeed here in the Ardennes.
More than the elevation change for me, that's the thing about this Spa circuit. It's long. And not just, you know, I don't mean long in terms of it's a long lap, which it is compared to most, but it's spread out over such a big area because of that big, long back straight that, you know, you can have such weird conditions here. You can have basically riders on two sides of a hill, and one side's getting the weather and one side's not. One side's getting the sun and the other's not. Track temperature's different. The rain is different. I mean, looking at this beautiful blue sky that we've got so far, we're hopefully not going to have to worry about that too much today. But, you know, 8 hours is a long time, and you never know what you're going to get by the end of the night.
We can get all 4 seasons in a day here at Spa. Longest circuit on the calendar at 6.985 kilometres, and a real challenge for rider and machine. We got 37 teams on the grid. 14 from the EWC Superbike category, 23 super stockers, and then, of course, the experimental bikes. But we haven't got any today.
No, unfortunately, we don't.
We've got an Aprilia, though.
We've got an Aprilia, but we don't have the, you know, the crazy home-built contraption that is the MOTOS that we see at the French 24-hour races. We don't have the Ducati that has run in the experimental class in the past. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, really. We will have one back in Japan at the next round in Suzuka, where Suzuki are actually making a return to racing to run an environmentally focused experimental bike, but nothing this weekend.
National anthem of Belgium ringing out. Fans arriving at their seats in the grandstands. The anticipation starting to build, and you can see the tension on the faces of everyone down on the grid. Markus Reiterberger there, who will be starting the BMW. Of course, BMW won here in 2022. What a race that was, a race of attrition, of course.
Marcus, we're at Spa with the sun shining, and it's 8 hours this year. We're expecting a really fast race. Does that excite the riders?
Yes, I think it will be very exciting. The weather is unbelievable today. 8 hours, for sure it will be a sprint race, but we still have to try to manage the fuel and the tires. So I think we are in a good position. The 3 guys in front of us are super strong. We try our best, we try our maximum, and we will see where we end up, but the goal is for sure to win this race.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
So one aspect of the strategic picture that we haven't talked about yet is what to expect in the way of strategy, Simon. We think the bikes will run around 21 laps, but this is not going to be a race where there's no management at all. It's going to be quite a challenge for the teams and riders to manage that strategy and fuel save.
We're hearing a lot of talk about that already. A lot of discussion about how long the stints are going to be and about how important fuel management is going to be for this race.
Spa, it's a very difficult track for the tire consumption. This is a very fast track when you spend a lot of time on the edge at a high speed. It will be very challenging for all the manufacturers to give the best performance as possible to the teams and riders. In the 8 hours race, you have to be very fast and very consistent all over the stint. That's why it will be very interesting. It will be also very difficult for the riders, because in the 8-hour race, you cannot make any mistake and you have to ride at your best. So I think this will make a very challenging and interesting race. The new 8-hour format has been like a hoof for the riders. Many riders like this format because Spa is a natural track all over the forest, 7 kilometers, and the conditions they had to face during the night when it was the 24 hours were very tricky for the riders. That's why many happy to race only 8 hours. And the only bad things about this new format is we can only eat Belgian fries only during 8 hours. Finally, the Radiant, the most famous corner of the circuit. You arrive at the bottom at nearly 390 km per hour. You have a small change of direction and you go steep uphill without seeing the exit. This is a crucial corner for the lap time and also during the race, because if you don't do the corner perfectly, you can lose a lot of speed, and afterwards you have a long straight uphill, the Camel. And this is, like I said, a crucial point because you can lose a lot of seconds, and that's also why the riders love it.
Our very own Xavier Simeon, who will be joined by Caroline de Moraes down in pit lane for all the action and all the updates, giving us that insight around this circuit. And we were talking about strategy just before, but I tell you what, just tactically navigating 7 kilometers through the Ardennes, this circuit needs, as I said at the top of the show, no introduction. There's corners, Simon, that are just very grueling.
There are, but there are also corners that are absolutely loved by bike racers, because there's nothing that these guys love more than big, fast, sweepy direction changes where you're carrying a ton of speed. The massive benefit that, you know, that Paul Sédéchart have in particular is that it's also those sort of corners that the Yamaha R1 loves. They've been sort of consistently fastest all weekend through the second sector, through that really quick sector. That's their strong point here, but I think no one's going to be too fussed about the physicality of this because they get to ride Spa, you know?
Sector 1 and 3 around this track, all about big horsepower, all about straight line speed. The longest sector, the most important sector, is about bike maneuverability, bike setup, and that's where the Yamaha is very good. And if you conquer it in the second sector, you really do have this circuit nailed. Simon was close to trying that earlier on, but he opted out, didn't you, Simon?
I'm not quite sure that I'm ready for the tightrope over the start-finish line just yet.
Health and safety.
Yeah, exactly.
There's Stefan Mertens, two-time EWC champion, of course, going to be the official starter for this 8 hours of Spa-Francorchamps, and you can see the fans lining the start and finish straight here. The grandstands are full. The tightrope artist is in full swing. We've got it all, and we're about to have the race action as the bikes set off on the formation lap. They will return to the grid. We'll have the iconic Le Mans style standing start, the dash across to the bikes, and then the run up to La Source. And as I was saying earlier, Simon, such a short run to that first hairpin. You've really got to make the most of that standing start.
Absolutely. This is one of those places where you generally get fairly chaotic starts anyway, even without a running Le Mans style start, because of that short drop into the turn. We're going to see, I think we're going to see fireworks off the line here. I think there's going to be a lot of jostling to get good position. As we see the Wojciech guys just making sure those front brakes are up to temperature with a little bit of a stoppy there as they roll around in this sighting lap.
Kevin Manfredi with the top rack down into Le Con. I think we had the old Rossi dangle. I think you can almost call the stoppy now a top rack because he's just so good at it.
Jack Miller has done his best to claim it, but I think top rack's going to be the king of it for quite some time, isn't it? Although in saying that, it's Kevin Manfredi there. Maybe the Italian just got it a little bit wrong. He's used to riding Moto E bikes that are quite a bit heavier, so maybe just forgot for a second that the R1 just doesn't quite have the same bulk to it as one of those machines.
Through the no-named left-hander there, you can see the modifications before we arrive here at Pouhon that the circuit, underwent back in 2022, 80 million euros worth of modifications. How do you spot the Superbike EWC machines from the stockers? Well, the black number background and the white headlights. The stockers will have a red background, white number, and of course the traditional yellow lights. We might not see too much in the way of the lights. I mean, obviously they're on all the time, but you don't really get a full flavour of the lights on these bikes until sunset. And
thankfully, the standardisation of LED lights has made it a little bit easier to see them during the day. It makes it a bit easier to spot them, doesn't it? Now that they're all so bright, it's not like the old days. Whenever I remember going endurance racing sort of 15 years ago, when you were struggling to see where you were going thanks to the headlights not quite being what they are these days.
Nicolo Canepa will lead the field on the Yamaha. Alan Teixeira will start on the FCC TSR Honda. Then it's the Frenchman, Greg Black, aboard the Yoshimura Cert bike in third. Marcus Reiterberger will start in fourth on the BMW. And Stephen Odendaal, the South African, on the 333 bike with Greg LeBlanc aboard that Kawasaki WeBike Trickstar machine in sixth place. In the stockers, it's Kaz Watanabe who will start on the Team 12 bike. Kevin Manfredi on the Wojciech machine. Then Johan Nijon on the Honda No Limits bike with Sebastian Suchet aboard that 55 National Motors machine. Well, the bikes are back on the grid. The riders have made their way across to their starting spot. They'll have a circle on the grass there. They need to have 1 foot in that circle at all times. Greg Black just making the final checks on his Yoshimura Cert machine. Don't want to do a Steve Parish here and start about 10 seconds before anyone else. The officials will be watching. And you can see the white circle there on the grass. The 8 hours of Spa-Francorchamps, second round of this 2024 FIM EWC Championship. Oh, no, that is a Steve Parish, and I haven't seen one of those for many a year. That was what's deemed a false start. The green flag didn't drop, it was just raised at the back of the grid.
That's just going to send the nerves right through the roof, isn't it?
You can sense the adrenaline here at Spa. All eyes on that national flag. And we're racing. The 8 hour is green. And it's that Yoshimura Cert bike. But
Problem off the line for the number 5 FCC TSR machine.
I nearly said Vandermark there, did I? Getting carried away. It's the Yoshimura Cert bike of Greg Black who leads the field up to Radion for the first time. Nicolo Canepa aboard the Yamaha into second place. And is that Stephen Odendahl there, or is it... I didn't quite see who it was in third place. No, it's the BMW of Marcus Reiterberger. Look at the horsepower of that BMW. It's going to swamp the other bikes as we head up to the comp for the first time. Marcus Reiterberger all the way up to the race lead from third place. And that Yoshimura Cert bike, the Suzuki, getting swamped in the slipstream. So Reiterberger leads from Canepa on the Yamaha. Now Greg Black, who was leading up the hill for the first time, back to third. The Kawasaki of Greg LeBlanc is up there in fourth. And all the while, trying to look out for bikes further back. Is that the KM99 machine of Florian Marino, who's gone well? I think it is. Stephen Odendahl, who started fifth, has dropped back slightly, and the front five are away. So Florian Marino in that group, Greg LeBlanc there as well.
We've not really talked about the BMW all weekend in the build-up to this. They've been, you know, still a bit of a dark horse in it, but obviously we know that BMW has a big horsepower advantage. We know that it's got all that big aero working in the front of it, and looks like it's done the trick so far.
Canepa having a look up the inside into Blanchimont. Not often you get up the inside there, but that was really the drive of the Yamaha in terms of overall horsepower. He just got on the throttle so much earlier coming out of the final corner there before Blanchimont Paul Frere. And you're going to want to stretch your legs if you're Nicolo Canepa, but look, here comes the BMW, not letting the Yamaha have it all his own way. Reiterberger, it's fair to say, all out of shape there, but he's managed to gather it up.
Did very well to not lose, not just to lose the bike, but to not lose much of an advantage there either.
This will be interesting with the BMW pushing the air.
Yeah,
how efficient is it?
How much of a slipstream advantage that the Yamaha gets in being in behind them.
If you can't pass the BMW in the slipstream, you know it's quick. It's quick.
It's quick, yeah.
I said before the green flag, it's all about horsepower in those first and third sectors. Now we'll see the Yamaha come into its own. Sylvain Guintoli there, looking on at his teammate. Of course, Sylvain Guintoli made the transition from Yoshimura Suzuki to BMW. Bradley Smith's also in that fold in terms of test riders as well. And Nicolo Canepa looks menacing in the wheel tracks of the BMW. Look how much earlier he can get on the throttle, and look at Reiterberger sliding that BMW out of Pouhon already. You don't want to be doing that when you've got a 45-minute stint, 21 laps of fuel on board that bike, but he's certainly working hard at the front. You get the impression the Yamaha's not working as hard.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the benefit of letting someone else set the pace for you, isn't it? You can tuck in behind them, you can let them do the work. Although in saying that, I think Canepa would rather be in the lead right now. The way that he's setting up another, he's looking all over the back of that BMW, trying to set up a move, trying to find his way through. And I think at this point, it's probably more to try and escape the Cert bike than it is to get out and get away from the BMW itself, you know. We talked about the horsepower advantage, but we also talked before the start of the race about how strategic this was going to be and about how much it would be about fuel management. And that might be an area where the BMW is just a little bit of a weakness. And, you know, Yamaha will know that. They'll have a rough idea.
So this is the bike that I was trying to pick up at the beginning, that FCC TSR Honda machine. Just couldn't work out what had happened to Alain Tichère on the opening lap. Now he's holed up behind the National Motors bike, but a disastrous start for the machine that was third on the grid. second on the grid, sorry.
Yeah, it looked like they stalled it off the line maybe and had to restart it. Lost a lot of time. They've actually done well to get back up to P13 already, based on how far they were down, how far down the grid they started it at the end.
Florian Marino's just put a move on Greg LeBlanc. That's for 4th place. So the KM99 machine moving ahead of the Kawasaki WeBike Trickstar bike up at Le Camp at the front. It's as you were. Greg Black looks comfortable in 3rd place. We haven't mentioned Corentin Perolari at all. The Tati Team Bedinger bike up there as well in the top 6. Tati came 2nd here in that 2022 race, that sort of race of bedlam, mayhem. And they are going nicely. We haven't also touched on the tyres. So we've got 3 different tyre manufacturers in the EWC class. We got 7 Pirellis, or 7 bikes on Pirellis, 3 bikes on Bridgestone, and 4 on Dunlop. At the moment, Marcus Reiterberger leads the race on those Dunlop tyres, but the Bridgestone shod Yamaha is up the inside and making easy work of the B&W up to Blanchimont.
It's quite interesting to see that, because we've been hearing them, talking about maybe not quite having the front confidence that they wanted from the Bridgestone this weekend. Doesn't look like it from the way he's making moves at the minute, does it?
No. You're absolutely right. And the other bikes on the Bridgestones are, of course, the FCC TSR Honda and the Yoshimura Cert.
Yeah, Bridgestone are in this championship for one thing and one thing only, and that's to win the Suzuki 8R. That's still their priority for being here, and that's why what support they give is fairly limited, but it all goes to those big factory teams that have links to the other factory squads in Japan that you're going to expect to be fighting for the win alongside these guys in late July.
You almost need the Jaws theme tune to this now, because this was only ever going to end in one way. Marcus Reiterberger swamping the Yamaha down to Le Camp, and as soon as this will give Nicolo Canepa a bit of a headache.
There he is,
because it's going to be that sort of cat and mouse game, isn't it? As soon as Canepa hits the front, he's got to try and drop the hammer now in this second sector to break that toe, because passing Marcus Reiterberger towards the end of the lap in sector 3 doesn't allow him to do that. He's always going to get passed again in sector 1.
But of course, also what he's done now by making that pass and getting away is that he knows how much difficulty he's just had getting past the BMW. He's going to be hoping now that the Cert bike with Greg Black on it has just as much, if not even more. There's a real opportunity here to stretch out a little bit of a lead, put in a few fast laps and just break the BMW toe while they get stuck into the fight behind the Suzuki and maybe pull the first real advantage that we're going to see anyone have in this race.
2 Dunlop shod machines, 2 Bridgestone shod machines in the top 4. There's the KM99 Dunlop shod bike of Florian Marino, and look, he stands Reiterberger up. That was close. I don't think Marcus Reiterberger expected that. I don't think Marcus Reiterberger will be too enthralled by that. And I think he might be repaying that message ever so shortly, but Greg Black doesn't want that Yamaha to go away.
No, I think another part of this as well is that we've seen both Canepa and Greg Black get a real look at that back end of Reiterberger's bike, twitching all over the place in corner entry, looking very, very much like someone that's on the limit against 2 others that aren't that much on the limit. And the last thing that someone wants is someone to go down in front of them.
Did you see Damien Saunier's reaction there? Big exhale of breath. And here we go. Marcus Reiterberger is going to repay the favour on Greg Black up to Le Camp. Reiterberger will not have enjoyed that. There's no room for 2 bikes down to Blanchimont. And there we go. But he goes wide again. That's going to allow Greg Black the possibility to come back. And this is the sort of ding-dong effect of these 8-hour events. All the while, the Yamaha just starting to move away. Greg Black will be mindful of that, but he, like you said, Simon, faces that dynamic of how do I get past Marcus Reiterberger?
It's a tough situation to be in because, you know, the BMW is not his threat here. It's the Yamaha that's escaping at the front. But Reiterberger's doing a great job of using the strengths of the S1000RR. You know, he's hammering the Suzuki back where he can. Even if Greg Black can get past him again, he's going to come right back at him at the straight. What the Cert bike almost needs here is for Florian Marino and that number 99 Yamaha to just get involved in this scrap as well, because you know, potentially if he can put another one of those moves on it and maybe the Yamaha gets through as well, that's something else for Reiterberger to worry about. It lets him put down what you would expect to be faster times. You know, you would expect Greg Black to be a fair bit quicker if he can get away, but he needs the clean air to do it, to hunt down that Yamaha.
Whilst we've been watching the battle out front, I've been looking at the battle for the lead in the Super Stockers, and who's at the front? An Italian on an Italian bike. Kevin Callier is at the front on the Aprilia. The Aprilia leads in Super Stock.
That's a real boost in that arm for the project. You know, Aprilia have been really, really adamant for the longest time now that they don't see the benefit of going superbike racing. They have no interest in making a homologation special that costs a fortune, that, you know, puts it out of the price point of their customers. They think that superstock machines are much more relevant to what they should be doing. They're proving the point here.
Right, let's have a look at what happens to the FCC TSR Honda bike. It's just left there. Didn't start.
Doesn't start, yeah.
Now that is what we've seen over the years from the Yamaha squad. No problems for Yamaha Austria. Greg Black it was who led into turn 1. And all the while, the FCC TSR Honda machine there was left behind. Alan Teixeira playing catch-up. He's onto the back of another Honda up ahead of him, Corentin Perolari, on the number 4 Tata Team bike.
Fastest lap of the race so far to Alan Teixeira as he tries to close that gap down.
It must be such a sinking feeling being left on the grid.
Yeah, but he's doing a fantastic job. We're seeing him close down that gap. You know, it's ever so slightly, but I think he's taken about a second off it already, and he's up to P8 already. So this race isn't over yet for the FCC TSR bike.
Yamaha lead here in Austria, 1.1 seconds now the gap. We're watching the battle for 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th. The recovering FCC TSR Honda bike there of Alan Teixeira trying to catch up with Corentin Perolari. And that is Stephen Odendahl that's just ahead of Perolari as well. It's 3 Hondas, 6th, 7th and 8th. Then we've got a Kawasaki in 5th. Then we've got the Yamaha, Suzuki, B&W, Yamaha battle out front. And Alan Teixeira is pushing on. He's caught this trio of bikes ahead of him.
Yeah, that's going to cost him some time. It's one of those difficult ones. It's nice to have some markers whenever you're trying to close people down, but then whenever you catch them and suddenly have to find your way through them, it costs you your advantage again. So he's going to, we've already seen him making progress through the pack as he goes past Perolari on the number 4 bike. I'd imagine he's going to be pretty aggressive as he cuts through them here.
Let's have a look at Super Stock whilst we're looking at the battle for 7th and 8th. It's Kevin Callier who leads 9th overall. The 777 of Kevin Manfredi, the Wojciech bike, is there in 2nd place. They're at 11th overall. Then it's Thomas Ward on the 27, the TRT 27 AZ Moto bike. And that's an all-British lineup on a French run bike, and that's Marino is down. The 99 of Florian Marino with the Dandelions is not where he wanted to be at this stage of the race. 15 minutes in, and that's gone horribly wrong, and that looks like it's up at Le Combe by the looks of things.
That's, at this point in the race, that's a complete disaster. Unfortunately, it's, you know, the gravel trap is not somewhere that we're unfamiliar with seeing the number 99 bike over the last few races. But, you know, they've been able to rejoin, but I think that's going to have cost them any chance they had at all. You know, what was looking like a decent podium fight up until this point, running in fourth just behind that lead group.
I think he's tucked the front up at Le Combe. It'll be interesting to get a replay if we can. The bike has just rejoined. I've got that message from race control. So there it is with a lot of grass in it. Right. He's gone up the inside. Oh no, he's all by himself.
Yeah.
Tuck the front.
I think that's pushing a little bit too hard to stay on that lead group in front, just trying to maintain the distance or the gap to Greg Black. But you know, we know that they're pushing on really, really fast in front, and just asked a little bit too much of it.
Airbags deployed as well. Looked like the Incredible Hulk running back to that machine.
It's the good thing and the bad thing, isn't it? It means that he's going to have to spend the rest of the lap waiting in the suit to deflate. But at the same time, I think he's probably going to feel a little bit better at the end of the race because of it than he would without it.
Yeah,
so
remarkable.
Swings and roundabouts.
I mean, you've been covering motorcycle racing for so long now, Simon. You talk about safety. The remarkable development in certain areas when it comes to keeping these riders safe.
The airbag suits are just one of the best things that we've ever done. It's such a big step forward. You know, the broken collarbone injury that was the sign of a road racer, of a motorcycle racer in the past is not entirely gone, but pretty much, you know, it doesn't happen anymore. All these crashes that would have broken bones, now you just walk away from.
The KM99 bike into its pit box.
With a small golf course attached to it.
Yeah, it's taken a bit of a rivet out there. Please replace your divots when you've finished. There'll be no one laughing there because they know, Simon, just how costly that is. This is a race where you just cannot afford to make mistakes. We've talked about that at the beginning.
Absolutely. And, you know, what makes it even more, what'll make it sting even more, of course, is that this is a home race for that team there, that KM99 team, the Belgium team. So you get one chance a year, unlike all the French teams, and that's not the way they wanted it to go.
I mean, they were talking about, of course, it's Mario Cooper at the helm there, but they were talking about challenging for top honours here. I mean, you look at the lineup: Florian Marino, Randy the Punier, of course, and Jeremy Guarnomi, who's made the transition from BMW. A really strong endurance championship lineup there.
Absolutely, and what it's done is handed a massive advantage back to that number 5 bike, because all of a sudden they're not that far off the podium.
The front 3 bikes flash through. Nicolo Canepa still leads. That gap's not really growing, and you get the impression that Canepa now managing the rear tyre, managing the fuel mileage as well. There is an element of fuel save through all of these stints. Marcus Reiterberger settling into second, and then 1.5 seconds behind him, Greg Black. And then it's Alan Teixeira who's trying to close that 4.8 second gap between himself and the Yoshimura Cert bike. Here are the trio leading this race up at Le Combe, and they're going well. Kevin Callier now aboard the Aprilia, leading in the Stockers up to 8th overall.
I think we're going to get a really good idea here, thanks to that bad start for the number 5 FCC bike. We're going to get a really good idea of what the stints are going to look like, because looking at their lap time, they're really, really pushing on. Alan Teixeira is really pushing on to try and close down Greg Black. It'll be interesting to see whether or not that means he has to pit a little bit earlier. It'll be interesting to see what it means for his fuel consumption as we get closer to the 45-minute mark and the first stops that are required.
That's a stocker, the number 62 machine down, I think, at the final corner. The DDB Lux Moto racing bike, another home entry, another Belgian bike, with a Belgian rider that's gone down the road.
This is frustrating for the
bit more damage than I thought.
Yeah, I didn't think there was too much damage, but we're seeing a dash being replaced at the minute.
It might have gone end over end a little bit when it hit the grass. What's interesting is when you go endurance racing, everything just clips on and off. Those handlebars clip on and off. It's remarkable to see how quickly these bikes can be fixed, if you like, in adversity, because they're modified to be able to be fixed.
Basically, everything's modular, and all the top teams, including the KM99 squad, will have boxes sitting ready in the garage with everything you need to replace a dash, everything you need to replace a right handlebar or a left handlebar, and it's all plug and play. You know, it's a real refined science, repairing crash damage in these things. It's something that they'll drill for. It's something that they'll be prepared for. And honestly, actually, you know, the fact that they've been in the pits for so long is kind of indicative of how much damage there was done there, despite us not really seeing it.
A quick lap from Nicolo Canepa last time around. He opens the gap to 1.8 seconds now. Greg Black was quicker than Marcus Reiterberger, and that's the dynamic we were talking about earlier. The lap time that puts the bikes where they were on the grid. The FCC bike, we know that the Cert bike was quick as well in qualifying, quicker than the BMW bike, but in race trim they can't get rid of this BMW because it's so quick in a straight line. It's a bit like the hare and the tortoise.
I'd imagine that Greg Black is going to be feeling quite frustrated right about now. He's tried to have a look past the BMW. He knows that it's probably not going to work because of, you know, what the slipstream is going to do for him. The fact that they're just going to get blasted past again shortly after any move that he does try. So for now, he looks like he's kind of content to settle for it, but the more he watches that yard bike get away from him, the more frustrated he's going to be starting to feel, I think.
Well, it's so annoying for Greg Black because as soon as he gets past Marcus Reiterberger, that BMW is a bit like a wasp at a picnic. It just comes straight back, and there's nothing you can do about it. Let's go down to pit lane. We're going to hear from Florian Marino, I think. Well, we were going to hear from Florian Marino.
Strong pace, but also controlling.
We are.
Looks like you lose the front entering the comb in the last moment, but you didn't expect that crash.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, I feel very surprised because, you know, I was feeling pretty calm, you know, and I just tried to hold my position behind, you know, without doing any mistake. And honestly, like shifting back the last gear, yeah, the blipper just popped my front out and I crashed, you know, and yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's racing.
Good luck for the rest of the race. You can do it.
Yeah, despondent Florian Marino there. He knows he's made a mistake. We're all human beings. We all make mistakes, but he feels the weight of the world on his shoulders because, well, you've got to head back to your pit box, face the music.
That's why it's quite good that we've got Xavier Simeon in pit lane for us. He's well aware of that feeling. I think he's got a little bit of empathy to bring to it that maybe you or I wouldn't.
Yeah, a little bit of an inspiring call there at the end of that interview because he knows, he's been there.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, the guy's an ex-world champion. He's been there and done that. He's made his mistakes as well as everyone in this grid has during an endurance race. But, you know, what can you do as a team apart from get on with it, especially this early in the race?
Here's the Aprilia. We haven't seen too much of it, but there is the 111 bike, started 18th on the grid. I mean, if you look at where it qualified, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sort of 7th, 8th in class. And here we are, made easy work of the rest of the field. And you know, that bike is there on merit. I mean, if you look at how far ahead he is, he's leading now that 27 machine, and it's worth flying the British flag there. Thomas Ward aboard that bike, but he's leading that bike by a good 25, well, 8 seconds.
Yeah, it's a real surprise because they've not been a name, not been a team that is featured at the sharp end of the stock class coming into this. They're not who we expected to see there, but putting together a great effort so far.
I mean, the pole sitting bike, the Team Etoile bike, the 25 machine, is 4th in class. Kazuki Watanabe aboard that bike. But, you know, he's 9 seconds off the lead now. He's right up with Kevin Manfredi and Thomas Ward. They're 10th, 11th and 12th overall. 2nd, 3rd and 4th in the Super Stockers, having a real ding-dong battle. And we're about to get the same. I'm really interested to see what Alan Teixeira brings to the table for this fight. Surely he's not going to sit behind Greg Black. He's going to want to have a go at that BMW.
I mean, so he's just done the fastest lap of the race again as he keeps closing down that gap. He's a second quicker than Greg Black at the minute, Greg Black and Ryderberger. So he's hauling in. And, you know, depending on the pit signals that Greg Black's getting at the minute, he's going to know that there's a bike coming and hunting him down. It might actually not be a bad thing for him because this might be, you know, it's another tool for him to use to try and break that slipstream advantage that Ryderberger has over him. It's another bike in the mix. At this point in the race, he's not going to be too worried about maybe conceding one place to the FCC bike if they can work together and use it to their advantage to close down the yard bike as it gets away from them.
Don't forget, you can get in touch on X, formerly known as Twitter. Send us a message wherever you are in the world, at Tom Game or at Denk Mitt, and we will get back to you. Jörg Reich's got in touch, watching from the south of France. Paul is also watching as well, although he joined 10 minutes late. We'll let you off there. So approaching 28 minutes now. Alan Teixeira is arriving at the party. Probably a party he wishes he'd been at a little bit earlier, having missed out on the opening laps after that slow start.
I think he's probably not thinking about it too much right now, but you'd imagine the team are a little bit concerned about fuel economy, about you know, when that fuel light's going to come on for him, just because of the pace that he's been forced to set to push to get back into this this battle for second.
Just going deep again there, Marcus Reiterberger, but he's a big lad. Long levers, Marcus Reiterberger, and every time the bike's taking him for a bit of a walk, he seems to wrestle it back underneath him.
He's making me genuinely nervous watching him because it looks loose, but you don't ride that loose for that long without, you know, there being an element of control to it. I think maybe it is just a consequence of those big long levers of his, those big arms and legs, as we finally see the KM99 bike getting back on track. Over 11 minutes in the pits, thanks to that crash, which is a long time early on in the race.
Kevin Manfredi's just dropped a little bit down the order, or Thomas Ward as well.
Yeah, I wonder if they've maybe had a little bit of contact with each other or something, and maybe just pushed each other a little bit wide. You know, we're in an endurance race, but we're only 30 minutes into it. We're still very much at that sprint race stage of it, aren't we? Where people are jostling for position on track, not just time advantage.
They dropped behind Kenny Foray and Kaz Watanabe, so the 777 machine, the Wojciech machine, has dropped behind those two. Thomas Ward has gone from second now down to 5th in class. It's a BMW second overall and a BMW second in the Stockers as well. On board with the Yoshimura Cert machine. And straight away, Greg Black has said, well, You have a go then. Alan Teixeira has arrived at a rate of knots aboard the FCC TSR Honda as Reiterberger spins the rear wheel up out of that long right-hander that leads to Blanchiment. And Teixeira's through. But for how long is the million-dollar question? So now you find your braking spot for the chicane. Reiterberger's coming straight back, and the Honda thinks better of it. Teixeira chops across the front. Nicolo Canepa's not too bothered. He's got clean air now. Alan Teixeira aboard the FCC TSR Honda has made easy work of Greg Black and Marcus Reiterberger aboard the BMW. He's been setting purple laps, and Simon, it's no surprise he's straight away up to second place, and I think he's got the distance between himself and the BMW to stay there, and now he's going to focus his sights on Nicolo Canepa out front, who's got a 6.5 second lead now.
I mean, Greg Black's day's just gone from bad to worse, hasn't it? Seeing someone else do what he can't do and make quick work of that BMW, I wonder if it's just going to kind of force him to reevaluate his strategy a little bit and try and hammer his way through and make it stick this time, rather than just sitting quite comfortably and you know, seeing what he could do, just maintaining position, because he can let the Yamaha have a little bit of an advantage right now, but he can't let the FCC bike as well. He can't let them away with it. So he kind of, you know, the onus is on him to respond to this now. At the same time, though, I'd imagine that the FCC box are still going to be a little bit apprehensive about what Teixeira's bike's going to do in the next 10 minutes as we start to get close to where we're going to be expecting the first pit stops, because I think that he's been pushing this hard. I think this is a rider that's riding with a little bit of red mist. He's got the bit between his teeth. He's got a target in front of him now in the form of the Yamaha. He's going to know from his pit signals exactly what the gap is and how much quicker he is, because, you know, we're looking, he's still substantially faster.
Greg Black has just copied what Alan Teixeira did. Took him a while, and he's stolen the script from the FCC TSR Honda man. And finally, he's got past Marcus Reiterberger, who's getting his money's worth today, using all the facilities, isn't he?
And then a little bit more. That would have been a track limits warning if this was a MotoGP race. Well out onto the green through there. I'd imagine that riding style of his is going to be making a few of the others slightly nervous.
And none more so than Sylvain Quintoli, the face of experience. And, you know, Sylvain is blisteringly fast, but in a completely different manner. He's just so controlled. He's like a swan on the bike, isn't he?
I would imagine at this point Greg Black would be wishing that it was his old teammate Sylvain Quintoli on that BMW, just to give him a little bit more reassurance that nothing's going to go horribly wrong.
Well, he'll be looking for a rocket back up the inside. Look how quick this BMW is. We're closing in on the back of the Yoshimura Cert Suzuki. Surely not.
Not quite.
And he's done it. That was the nail in the coffin for Marcus Reiterberger. He needed to get straight back past Greg Black. He's not managed to do that. Greg Black now will get his head down. No mistakes in this middle sector. And surely that will be enough to break the slipstream next time around. Ooh, you don't want to be sitting up there.
All the track and then some.
You do not want to be sitting up there at all.
But what we're about to see now, just to throw a spanner in the works for everyone, you know, it's testament to the pace that this front four are pushing on, that we're already catching back markers, and that could really, really interfere with Reiterberger's plans to stay in the back of Black on the Suzuki if they just don't quite go through cleanly.
You just don't get the effect that you get at Le Mans. Much shorter circuit, of course. Yeah. This, the longest circuit on the calendar at 6.9 kilometers. The back markers, there's less of a frantic nature in terms of getting past them, because there's less of that concertina effect and more opportunity to pass. Like I said, you can get in touch on X, at Tom Game or at Denk Mint. We've got a message from Jimmy Lee, who's watching sat at St. John's on the Isle of Man, waiting for the start of the Supersport TT race to start, now delayed. That's where you've just come from, Simon.
It is. I flew in last night. I haven't seen 3 races in 5 days, thanks to the rather unpredictable weather they've been having over there. But yeah, made it off last night to get here to watch this, to talk us through a very different type of endurance racing, and hopefully next year we don't get a clash between the two, because I think, you know, there's always been traditionally quite a bit of crossover, because that riding style suits so much the two slightly different disciplines, that we've always seen quite a few road racers go quite well here.
And it's worth saying, no Michael Dunlop. We saw him last time out at Le Mans, but he's been rather busy.
He's been quite busy, becoming the most successful Isle of Man TT racer in history, taking the record off his Uncle Joey earlier in the week, and lining up for the blue ribbon for the senior TT later today, weather permitting. But, you know, he's had a great start to the week, and I think part of that will be because of the bike time that he's had coming into the TT, thanks to doing the Le Mans 24-hour race.
We got a message from Finley. My parents are part of the ADSS 97 team. I'm sat at home watching on TV as I look after the dog. Hopefully you can give them and the whole ADSS team a shout out. Yes, I will do just that.
We've just seen, rather unusually, our first pit stop of the race, and it looks like it's the Aprilia that's currently leading the Superstock class, the 111.
It's thirsty then.
Into the pits, it's thirsty, which is not going to last, not going to do them too much benefit over the course of this, is it? That's
well, we talked
not what they wanted to know.
About this a lot at Le Mans. The amount of time you spend in pit lane governs where you finish in these endurance races, and it's so important to manage that. We know there's going to be fuel management in this race. 8 hours, the way they work it out, stint length, that kind of stuff. If you're in that early, it could mean that you have to go one more stop more than everyone else come the end, and that's, you know, going to drop you back 40, 50 odd seconds at the very least if you have to do a splash and dash.
Oh, at the very least. We got a notification earlier in the weekend from the stewards here to say that, you know, they send out a time, that's the length of time that it takes to go through pit lane, in case someone gets issued a ride-through penalty towards the end of the race and doesn't have time to take it. The length of time that it takes just to ride through the pit lane here is 31 seconds.
It's a long old pit lane. Right, the ADSS 97 squad, they are currently in 29th place. Stefan Hill aboard at the moment. They've got Chris Walker and Chris Platt as well in their rider lineup. Chris Walker, how he keeps on going, I just don't know. And it's not like he just keeps on going. I'm doing him a disservice there. How he keeps on going as quickly as he's going.
Credit to him. Credit to him. It just shows, you know, especially in endurance racing, how much of it is mindset. Stalker never let his fitness fall away once he stopped racing, but you know, he's still got the attitude for it. He's still making it work, and still, you know, we spoke a little bit after Le Mans, still having a ton of fun doing it, even at 52 years old.
52 years of age. I was just double checking on that. Yeah, he was racing superbikes way back in the 90s.
I think he probably will not like me saying this, but he was racing superbikes before some of these kids were born.
I mean, what a statistic that is. And we're looking now at some of the super stockers, and this is battles for position. There's the 27 bike, and we were talking about that machine earlier on. That is Thomas Ward. A move for position there. Look how many of these stockers are just nose to tail. It's like a Red Bull rookies race. And we're 39 minutes in, and that was right before the pit stops start to happen. It's Daniel Webb, the Brit, who leads stock Or super stock now, 9th overall, the 777 bike ahead of the pole sitters, the Japanese machine, Team Etoile, the BMW Kaz Watanabe in 2nd. Then it's Kenny Foray on the BMW in 9th, but Thomas Ward is there as well as the number 55, Sebastian Suchet, the National Motors bike. And there is our first pit stop for Yoshimura Cert.
It's a little bit earlier than we expected. I think they were expecting maybe another lap or two before they'd have to come in.
Well,
the
they're
pits.
not in yet, sorry, are they? Well, what's my timing screen done? I was looking down at the time. No, they're still out. Greg Black's still out, so we were just watching there. It wasn't Dan Lidfoot. We were just watching Etienne Masson getting ready.
But a few of the teams starting to dive in now.
Now, the first stops are interesting, Simon, because you have to err on the side of caution in terms of your fuel efficiency. And it's a bit of a moving feast, depending on how hard the riders have worked the bike in this opening stint. They do have a fuel light. They're saying 21 laps, depending on where the fuel light comes on. Of course, if the fuel light comes on at Eau Rouge, you'll probably pit that lap. If the fuel light comes on at Blanchimont, you go another lap. There's Damien Saunier, who spent years learning from Dominic Mayon. No one better, really.
No, there's so much experience inside. There's a lot of experience inside all these top teams, but there's so much of it inside CERT. You know, they've never been distracted by anything else. They've never dipped their toe into other classes. They've never, you know, spent time building bikes for other people the way that, say, the Yard team have. They are an endurance team through and through. It is their bread and butter. It is what they do, and it shows in, you know, just how well oiled the machine is.
Canepa's managing this gap. Teixeira dropped a chunk of time in the middle sector last time around. Foot out, he's coming in. The Yamaha, the lead bike, is the first to blink. Let's see what the other machines do. Will Alan Teixeira be in this time around? Mandy Kites and his crew ready for the Italian. Looks like Karel Hanneke is the next on the bike. I tell you what, 18 is early.
It is. It's a lot earlier than we expected. And you know what? That could well be the deciding factor in this race.
It's Fritz out, not Hanneke.
Yeah, it is.
I saw the pink.
No, the real question...
Hanneke used to have pink boots.
He did,
those?
yeah. The real question here is going to be, I think, how long it takes the CERT bike before they blink. As we just get a notice from the stewards to say that the numbers at 97 bike, commentator's curse, are under investigation for their starting procedure. So hopefully they haven't done something naughty off the line.
That's interesting. I mean, we saw the false start for half the grid.
Yeah. They've just pitted as well, and it's Stalker, Chris Walker out in the bike now. I did a little bit of looking there, and he's going to hate this. Chris won his first British Superbike races in 1997. His teammate Stefan Hill was born in 1998.
Yeah, that says it all, really. Well, he's got a professor in his stable to learn from.
No one better. No one better.
Greg Black and Alan Teixeira, who just headed to that second element of the Fagnes chicane a little bit early. I don't know if he's getting tired on that machine or the bike's just not working as well as he would have liked. But Greg Black has caught up, really, with Alan Teixeira. It's Alan Teixeira heading back into the clutches of the Yoshimura Cert bike, really, rather than the FCC TSR Honda trying to close the lead gap. Of course, that gap now has gone because the lead bike is Alan Teixeira. Nicolo Canepa having pitted last time around. What are we going to see this time? Still no action on pit road. for the FCC TSR Honda squad and the Yoshimura Cert machine. Look at those trick bits of equipment. FCC TSR Honda are brilliant, aren't they? It's almost like a robot that comes in and just lifts the front of the bike up.
It's the, it's kind of that you know, they've done something quite unique actually in endurance. They've taken that Japanese, you know, the Suzuka experience. They've brought it to Europe. They've merged it with a French-based European team, taken the best of both out of it, and so far it's been, you know, really successful.
Up to Lecomte for another lap completed. We are on lap 19 now, 45 minutes completed. It's Honda who leads Suzuki, who leads BMW, but BMW were in last time around. Sylvain Quintoli has now taken over from Markus Reiterberger. So Steven Odendahl will move up on the second of the Hondas in the top four. Greg LeBlanc is still out on the Kawasaki machine.
Oh no, problems in the pit for one of the Kawasaki teams. That is absolutely, I would imagine, a fueling issue for the number 82 team. The Uniserv Moto 82 team have maybe just tried to chance it a little bit too much.
Pole-sitting bike in the Stockers, Kaz Watanabe, now up to 7th overall, leading in class. The two bikes behind him, the BMW and the Chrome-Burner RAC machine, into pit road. So is the Team 18 Sapir-Pompier bike. Kevin Callier's dropped down. I wonder where he will rejoin. Interestingly, Kevin Callier double stinting, because he's still on the bike. I hope he's had his Weetabix this morning.
I don't think they're one of the they're not one of the teams that are only running two riders. No, they've got a three-man team, and there we are. Finally, finally the FCC bike and the Yoshimura bike into the pits. That's 20 laps. That's another 2 laps over the yard bike. That's going to come into play at the end of this race.
And some synchronized swimming up at the final chicane there as well, because for some reason Greg Black tried to send it up the inside as they're both
Why not?
gated.
Why not?
Just to say I led the stint.
Every psychological advantage you can get, you know. Etienne Masson preparing to get back out in the third bike. He's not riding for them at Suzuka this year, actually. He's going to be the lead pilot on that experimental GSX-R being run by the former Suzuki MotoGP team boss, Shinichi Sahara.
Now, how many times do we see that Yoshimura Cert with the nod in pit lane? So it was FCC TSR Honda who came in ahead. And it is Yoshimura Cert who leave ahead. Steven Odendahl had brought the 333 in. Mercado out on that former stock rider, super stock rider.
Yeah, and a former Moto E rider as well. You know, quite a few guys in this class who've dipped their toe in that.
It's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, because we've got a few bikes that have still stayed out. The number 11 machine, Greg LeBlanc, and oh dear, that's a very second-hand looking machine.
That has been over on its nose, hasn't it?
It's a Yamaha. I think it may be a stocker. Just trying to see who's tumbling down the order. It's the 83 machine.
Yeah.
So that's the Team TCP Racing Yamaha. Rider is okay, back on the bike. We haven't seen much of Greg LeBlanc. Well, Mr. Endurance has managed to make that fuel go longer than anyone else.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, there's that hare and tortoise scenario, isn't it? They haven't been in that mad battle at the front. They haven't been burning fuel, knocking chunks out of BMWs or anything like it, have they? And it's working quite well.
Well, I think we're going to hear from Alan Toucher down in pit lane.
Hopefully find out what happened on that start.
Not the start that you would have hoped for, but you managed to really fight yourself back up there. Talk me through that first stint.
Yeah, we make a mistake with my mechanic. I don't switch on the bike, and when I jump and on the bike, I want to push start, but the bike doesn't turn on, and we lose a lot of time. But anyway, I try to push for comeback. We know we have a good rhythm, but it's a little bit disappointing because sure we can fight with the yard. But the race is still long. I take rest and go again in 15 minutes.
And there's only 2 of you, so I know you need your rest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know what? That sounds like such an elementary mistake as Greg LeBlanc has finally brought the lead machine in, the Kawasaki, but it just shows that, and they've got a problem here. What has gone wrong with that bike? Now they can get the fuel in. So, with all the adrenaline, the nerves, the emotion, everything going through your head, fundamentally switching the bike on is something you'd think would appear first in a rider's mind, but it just shows you how just that sort of brain fog that you get in those competition moments.
I mean, it's pretty key to making it start, isn't it? But yeah, you try and simplify these things as much as you can. You try and reduce the amount of work that everyone has to do as much as possible, but things like that will still happen. You know, it's just the nature of it. A really nice comparison shot there, actually, of the 2 pit stops from the FCC boys and the CERT team, and it just shows you, you know, we've talked before about that CERT machine, about how quickly they're able to get things sorted in the pits. That's a perfect example of it, as we're going to hear from Nicolo Canapast, you know, who essentially controlled that first stint, didn't he?
What a first strong stint, like always by your side. But we know that you have still the injury in the shoulder, but you were struggling a little bit. But Lula was okay for this stint.
Well, thank you, Xavier. Yeah, I tried to attack from the first moment because I know that in the 8 hours is very important, and I tried to open a gap, so I'm really happy that I did it. Shoulder is painful, to be honest. I'm struggling a lot more in this track, but with the adrenaline helps, so I'm trying my best.
And we also see that you are making a lot less lap than your opponents. Do you think it will be a problem for the race?
Yeah, for our calculation, we should do 1 stop more than the others. That's why it was the reason why we have to push quite hard and to open a gap. But everything is going as planned.
Perfect. Good luck.
I'll tell you what, leading by 7 seconds with 1 shoulder is, if he'd had 2, he would have been leading by 14 seconds.
Team boss Mandy Katz is going to be sending someone around to make sure that he's got a bad shoulder going into every race at this stage.
43 bike has stopped on track. That's up at turn 7. That's one of the super stockers.
Former Americans, Moto America Super Stock champion Andrew Lee just stopped, and unfortunately looking to be coming back in the recovery van.
Yeah, it's a long, I mean, you're miles away, but that's the Pridmore Run USA team.
Spoke to Andrew just before the race, and he wasn't feeling particularly well. He had a bit of a stomach bug going into the race, so a long push in the Belgian sun is just not what he needed at all to get through to the end of this, is it?
Not at all. Look who's back out front when it comes to the stockers. The 111. There we go, the Aprilia. Kevin Callier still on that. This is a monster stint. I mean, just to put it into perspective, anyone who's ridden the bike, just imagine doing an hour and a half or an hour and 20 minutes on one of these big heavy machines at the speeds that they are doing. Just the average superbike, super stock race, about 25 minutes. I mean, it's like doing 3 super stock races in a row. It's unthinkable.
It's so much work to do a double stint on this. It is really impressive, and it's testament to, you know, how fast they think he is relative to the other 2 in the team that they've sent him out again. You would imagine that that's not happened by accident. It's been part of the strategy. So we see someone else just getting pushed by the marshals in the background there. I think that's someone else who's down. You know, it's obviously been their plan. Yeah, you would imagine he's not going to do double stints all race long, but it's not going to be easy for him. And of course, you know, we see that the number 5 bike's back out on track with Josh Hook, but because of that injury to Mike DeMeglio, they're doing, there's only 2 of them in that bike. There's only going to be him and Alan Tichet working all the way through the race together. So combined with the fact that we're doing shorter stints here than we would at Le Mans, you know, where they're stretching kind of 52 minutes out of it as opposed to the 41, 42 we're seeing today. Those guys are going to have a busy day at the office, aren't they?
Well, they don't have the time to hydrate, get the food inside them, massage, all of that kind of stuff. And that's when the race starts to get longer in the day, where, you know, mistakes start to come, when the fatigue, mental and physical, starts to hit.
The only good thing they have going for them that is that, you know, 20 degrees air temperature, sun shining, conditions aren't going to mess them up much. It's certainly much better than it would be at somewhere like Suzuka. So at least you're not battling the elements as well. At least, you know, it's a little bit more manageable.
Marvin Fritz leads. That gap's just come down after the pit stops by about half a second. Etienne Masson is right with Josh Hook in second place. So those FCC TSR Honda crew members will be feeling a bit better as the Australian fires past the Frenchman Etienne Masson, now back to third. Sylvain Guintoli is out on the B&W. B&W now 12 seconds behind the podium fight as we watch the battle for fourth in the Super Stockers. Valentin Suchet is holding on to that aboard the National Motors machine. He's got the Tecmas B&W right behind him. Ahead of them is the number 36 bike, and that is the 3-Art machine. And then you've got, of course, the number 14, the Chrome Burner bike, and then Kevin Callier, who's going very quickly on the Aprilia. Aprilia it is who leads 7th overall on that Italian bike. It's thirsty, though. They will pit earlier than the others. Thanks to everyone who's got in touch on X, keeping us company. You can get in touch, message us at Tom Gaymore, at Denk Mint. Please say hello to Steve and the Clampets over in Canada. John CB500's watching. Ye old MFRF, a miserable motorsport fan, is watching too as well. Whoever is down, I think they'll be fair. Is that the Vocek machine? No, it's the number 36. Just tucked the front there. Oh, it's gone over the curb. That's going to really hurt. That is the 3-Art bike. So that is one of the front runners in the Super Stock. Now 12th in class.
Credit to him for a little bit of due diligence after the crash. He managed to kick his fallen brake protector off the circuit to ensure minimal debris.
Track Rat 86 has got in touch. Good morning from Canada. Loving the broadcast. Loving Spa in the sunshine. Drinking my morning coffee. FW or FIM EWC needs a North American race. We say it needs a British race. A North American race would be great, wouldn't it?
Glorious, wouldn't it?
Watkins Glen.
Ooh, interesting call. I was thinking that, you know, obviously the home of endurance racing in America is Daytona, isn't it?
Yeah, Daytona, of course.
No, or Sebring. How about that?
Tracy Smith says, can you explain what the riders are doing with the fuel caps?
So I think what Tracy's referring to is, I think that some of the teams are running like a silicone cover over the actual fuel filler cap itself. So what you're seeing sometimes after the pit stops is them putting that on is the rider's job, because it's one thing less for a mechanic to have to do. The rider can be handed it, because you're only allowed to have 4 people touching the bike. So makes it a little bit easier, gives the rider something to do, and then sometimes you'll just see them hammering it into place down pit lane to make sure that it's tight. So I think that's what they're up to there, Tracy.
Right, we have all but done our opening stint. So we are going to be handing over, myself, Tom Gaymore and Simon Patterson. We're going to be handing over to Liam Hodgins and, of course, Taylor Mack. I don't know what's gone on here. We couldn't open the door, but we can now. It's a heavy door. So, yeah, so Liam Hodgins and Taylor Mack will be taking you through the next 60 minutes. We're going to grab some lunch and we'll be back with you soon. You can continue to watch on Discovery Plus when the coverage changes over in half an hour's time. Be sure to follow Liam's instructions there. But from myself, Tom Gaymore and Simon, we'll see you in 60 minutes' time.
Greg, lots happening in that first stint, lots of overtaking. Conditions look great. How is it for you?
Yeah, it feels good. We got a good start in the race.
Well, thank you very much to Tom and
cautious. It was a good stint with the Yacht and the BMW and the TSR bike. We knew we got about the same pace. We saw the BMW is quite fast down the straight, so it was hard to actually get past him and stay in front. But yeah, it was a good battle, good fun, keep calm out there, and we'll see how it goes.
You're smiling, so it's good.
Yeah, it's good to keep the smile on, and yeah, as the race goes on, it should be okay for us.
Brilliant, good luck.
Thanks.
Well, a big thank you there once again to Tom Gaymore and Simon Patterson for the first hour of what was, I must admit, a very scintillating start to the race, as we've just seen another change of position. The 333 passing the back mark of the 72 and the 4 following him through. And I'd like to say a big welcome to the man to the left of me, Taylor Mack. Taylor, welcome.
Hello.
How are you doing? Very well. Very good to see you.
It's nice to be back in the commentary box. This is the first time I've commentated since the last World Endurance event I came to a couple of years ago. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be commentating on these races. It always baffles me how what should be calm races, nice, relaxed riding round, turns into complete chaos. And it's always exciting to watch. So yeah, really looking forward to getting stuck into this.
We were just watching the start of the race from the office next door, and we were enjoying how Marcus Reuterberger was going full top rack in the early laps. It's like, steady on, it's 8 hours to go, please don't tuck the front, as we saw Sylvain Guintoli in the pit box really looking a little bit stressed.
Yeah, and it is, although it is an 8-hour endurance race, it is fascinating to see just how hard they are pushing. I mean, they get very close to the qualifying laps, which is a one off extreme push for a lap time, and they do that for 8 hours. So I mean, it's a little bit easier for some of these teams where they've got 3 riders. The TSR team have only got 2 with Alan Tetcher and Josh Hook in there, so they've got a little bit more of their work cut out. Only having 2 riders, it's a little bit more demanding. But yeah, amazing in this. I think for these guys it feels like more of a sprint when they're normally used to doing a 24-hour race. 8 hours seems like nothing to them.
Now, former rider yourself, how do you approach the difference between a 24-hour event and an 8-hour event?
Yeah,
mentally as well.
I mean, I've never actually competed in a 24-hour race before, but it is from riders that I speak to, I think one of the most difficult parts I've been told about the 24-hour race is actually when it gets dark, because when it gets dark, your body naturally wants to start shutting down. It thinks it's nighttime. It wants to start going to sleep effectively. But the second the daylight appears, it becomes a lot more natural, and you start waking up again, and your body clock sort of kicks back in, and you feel alive again. So 8 hours between 3 of you, it's still very demanding, still very physical. We're used to doing 30-minute short circuit racing. A lot of these guys have all come from that originally, and they're used to sort of all-out sprints. And really, these are sort of 10, 20-minute longer stints, and they're still going flat out. They're still going to be physically exhausted when they come in. They do a lot of massage, In between, a lot of these teams have sports physios on site that are massaging them in between each stint. And it's also very important what they're eating and drinking throughout the stints, that they have to be careful, make sure they're replacing their fluids, because in a 30-minute superbike race, you can lose between 1 and 1.5 kilos just in sweat and water that you're losing. So it's really important to replace that, especially over these longer distances, else you start cramping up.
Yeah, it takes a toll on the riders, especially when such a physical circuit like Spa-Francorchamps. It's the longest circuit we have on the calendar, just under 7 kilometres, and with the undulation change as well, Taylor, it takes a massive toll on the riders, not just in terms of the fluid that you suggested as well, and also on the arms, but also it must take a toll on you mentally.
Definitely. I think with road racing opposed to sort of motocross, I think our sport is a lot more mentally draining than it is actually physically. When you ride a motocross bike, it's very physical, you use a lot of your energy, and it's demanding jumping and turning and the bike moving around a lot. Road racing, the bikes are a lot more in line, but they're a lot heavier and you're going a lot faster, so to turn them at speed uses big muscle groups, and they can feel quite heavy when you're travelling at 180, 200 miles an hour. But mentally, you're going so fast, your brain's processing so much information that without realising, that's exhausting your mind and your body physically as well. I know myself, at the end of a race weekend, it comes to a Sunday night and you're driving home in the van and your body just wants to switch off and turn off because it's so mentally draining. There's so much going through your mind that you have to think about all the time that, these guys are doing that after one stint, they've got that draining, and then they've got to do it again and again and again. So yeah, it definitely takes its toll on you.
It must be a little bit easier for them, consider it is only 8 hours, which means they don't have to push on in the stints so much. You see in Le Mans, for example, sometimes they do an hour and a half, but we've seen just before the 1 hour mark, everyone coming into the pits, every single rider, every team has made a pit stop so far, apart from Michael Gilbert, who's still rattling around there who was rattling around there earlier on before he slid off. So yeah, it's a very, very different mindset and obviously a very different set of circumstances to get yourself around. And so far,
I wouldn't count on my maths here, but so please,
I'm not very good at mine
please
either.
Don't take this for granted. But with my quick maths, I worked out that there's 60 minutes in an hour. And just look at the TSR bike here. This was the disaster they had off the start.
Yeah,
poor Alan Tetcher qualified great and then couldn't get the bike going. But he rode through so amazingly fast here to come back through. Made some big passes and overtook some really fast riders to get himself straight back up to the front. It was an impressive stint. He sort of made up for the ground that he lost at the start. But my quick maths. So I think there's 480 minutes in this race, and they were roughly doing the 48-minute pit stop. That 48-minute mark is where they pitted at the first time, so I'm guessing that they're attempting to do 10 stints between the teams here, and that, in my maths, works perfectly well. However, with endurance racing, we know it's never quite that simple. Teams start running low on fuel, they'll have to pit earlier. We could have crashes, which completely just sets that off from your original plan, and there's guys within these teams that are quickly figuring out the best strategy going forwards for the race. But my quick maths, Taylor's simple brain, we're going to be doing 10 stints roughly.
Taylor's sums, we'll have to call it, or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine your maths will be any worse than mine is, so I'll completely trust you on that one. But
good at prize money and invoices. I'm good at those maths. Outside of that, that's right.
As long as you're good at where the money comes in, and that's all that matters as well. We did see before we came on air, just before the hour mark, a comparison of the Cert Suzuki and the FCC Honda that we see on screen now in the slow-mos coming through the list column. Very poetry in motion, you have to say. But the comparison, the Cert Suzuki Yoshimura, I reckon, had about a 4 to 5 second quicker pit stop than the FCC Honda. So how much fuel would be going into that bike in the longer time, and how much longer, how many more laps could you get out of that roughly?
I think off the top of my head, these tanks are slightly bigger and they'd be around the 24-litre mark. And depending on the length of these stints, I don't actually know how much they would fill that tank to do a 48-minute stint. But it obviously depends from manufacturer to manufacturer. It also depends on the mapping that they put in the bike to make the bike more fuel efficient or to make it more powerful and faster, and they'll have to work that out. I do know that these bikes have data logging on them, so after that first stint, the team gathers a lot of information and they can assess exactly how much fuel the bike's using and then alter that for the stints going forward. So it definitely depends from team to team. I'm not sure exactly how much they've taken on board, but it's a very interesting part of this race that we don't normally factor in other short circuit racing.
Yeah, it's very much in terms of the results and of course the standings so far. Very interesting. So far at the moment it's Marvin Fritz on the Yart Yamaha that leads the way ahead of the 5 FCC Honda on screen. 7.3 ahead, and running at top 3 is Etienne Masson on the 12 Cert, so just behind them. So that's your top 3 for now. So, with just over 1 hour and 10 minutes gone of the 8 hours of Spa, almost said the 24 hours of Spa there because we're so used to the 24 hours. This is the first year without the 24 hours. And, well, it's going to be a much faster pace. It's a good preparation for some of these riders, Taylor, I guess, for the Suzuka 8 hours in just a few weeks' time. Very different circumstances, of course, very different track, very different climate as well. But just in terms of getting yourself ready. Oh, we've just got the FCC Honda gone down. That's Joshua Hook going into the first right, just slipping out of second place there. So that is, after having such a great progression earlier on in this race, the FCC team getting themselves ready. They know they've got a lot of work to do. Taylor, that's a big disaster for the FCC team.
Huge disaster. I mean, Josh was really pushing on, really fast early doors, but that's the risk you take. This is an endurance race and it's a long race. Obviously, Josh would feel comfortable riding at that pace, but yeah, it looked like he just lost the front there. I didn't quite catch the initial part of it. Hopefully we'll get a replay of it. But he's struggling now to get the bike picked up. The gravel's really deep, and superbikes are so heavy when they're in deep gravel. He's managed to get it up now, so he just needs to get that. Hopefully there's not too much damage, get the bike back, checked, and get back out there.
Yeah, on the last lap there, we're just going to have a replay, so yeah, just top the front going out of shot there. But
yeah, just look. I wasn't sure if he clipped the curb, but it didn't look like that. He just lost the front late on in the corner, and real shame because it was perhaps a little bit wide, carrying a little bit of brake maybe, or just as he got off the brake, and that's enough to wipe you out.
Well, thankfully he's got the bike back up and running again after what maybe about 30 seconds of it being buried in the sand trap and the gravel trap there on the exit of the corner. I was just about to say, on the previous lap, the FCC Honda was the fastest rider on track. Hook was pushing on, as you did say, Taylor, so he was 0.2 of a second faster than Fritz in first, and it was Masson that was pushing him on. He was only half a tenth behind him in terms of pace, so they were really starting to push on to try and catch the leader. So thankfully he's back up and running. Hopefully not too much damage to the Honda France machine. Honda France, of course, based in Barcelona as well, as many of the top Honda teams are. It's continuing on, so you must feel that everything seems a little bit hunky-dory for now, and no problems whatsoever at the moment.
Normally you do get quite lucky if you just low side like that. The bike will just slide through the gravel. He's obviously not damaged any of the levers and feels like he can continue. And very fortunate he doesn't have to make an extra pit stop, especially this early into his stint. But good news for Josh. Josh is a great guy. He is a really nice rider, really friendly, and so is Alan Tetcher, his teammate. So I always want them to do really well. Both really fast riders, always in contention for these race wins. Definitely doesn't make it easy when you've only got 2 riders to begin with, as D'Amelio, their teammates, injured, and unfortunately you then have a crash early on. You suddenly make it hard work.
Yeah, so we're watching the Cert Suzuki team as they've just moved up to second. So Marvin Fritz on the number 1 Yart Yamaha continues to lead now from the Cert Yoshimura Suzuki in 12th, in second on the number 12, 8.3 seconds behind. We've just had a crash for the number 5, the FCC Honda of Josh Hook, going into the first of the rights at the bottom end of the circuit, only a lap ago. So that's now promoted the 37 of Sylvain Gintoli, who did used to previously race for the Yoshimura Suzuki team, into third on the BMW. He's now starting to rally on as well. So as we were just talking about Taylor before we came back, a big disaster there for the number 5, who for a second time today is now having to come back through the field.
Yeah, luckily they've not lost too much ground. They're only down in 6th position, but terrible start for them with Alan Tetcher making a mess of the start, couldn't get the bike started. I think they were actually down in 17th on the first lap. Did brilliantly to bring it all the way back to second place, for then Josh to get out there and unfortunately lose the front, costing them more time. But this is endurance racing. We'll be sat here in the 8th hour and we'll have forgotten about all of this. It'll be there'll be the whole new wave of incidents, I'm sure, by then. But yeah, they've got the work cut out now, because really they're fighting to win this championship and fighting for race wins. So, but we are very early in this race. I know as Sylvain just makes a great pass there.
A very lovely move on the inside of one of the Hondas there coming through Lake Home. But yes, in comparison to a 24-hour event, maybe you can be forgiven a little bit for making a couple of mistakes in 24 hours, but in 8 hours, there's less time for those mistakes to come back from those mistakes, isn't there?
Yeah, 100%. The 24-hour race, it feels like forever when they have a crash at the start. There's so much time to get back into the race. But with an 8-hour race, it's so weird to talk about 8 hours of racing to be a short sprint, but it really does feel like that. And I mean, these races can be won and lost within a few seconds at the end. So for them to have a crash and cost themselves 30 seconds or a minute, it's a huge amount of time to try and claw back. So tricky time, and then you have the added pressure then of trying to make up time afterwards. You've got to push harder to get yourself back into the race. So the Yamaha, the Yacht team are so good at being consistent at the front, like the Yoshimura team as well. And Sylvain Guintoli on the BMW is no mug at this. He's won plenty of races in World Endurance now with the Suzuki team and racing for the BMW team now. So they're all very experienced riders at this. They know what they're doing. But at the same time, it's that tricky balancing act of pushing on, making yourself at the front and pushing the other riders around you to, but then also trying not to crash and have an incident.
This is a great little battle going on for 4th and 5th position, and hopefully these two will not be trying to push each other into too many mistakes. I imagine number 4 will be one to push the 333 into mistake, because he's been chasing them down for a long time now. I think it's here we go again, another slow motion replay, poetry in motion. You've got to love these slow-mos. It really does show the riders at work.
It's quite interesting looking at two different styles there. I think that's Mikado on the first bike in front on the 333, and he's hanging off so much, exactly like you'd imagine a World Superbike rider. He's come from the World Superbike Championship, hanging off so much, using his body weight to make the bike turn, getting his elbow down, compared to number 4 behind him, hardly moving off the bike, much more like a World Endurance rider, just not using any energy, sat in the middle of the bike, not making himself too uncomfortable. You see there the difference in their styles, and still getting around just as fast, so definitely saving energy and saving himself time.
Yeah, Hugo Claire on the number 4 has got the more of the old school style, as they call it now, while the number 30 or 333 of Mikado, he has the sort of all arms out, legs out, more modern style that we see more and more of nowadays.
So we're just watching a pit stop here with Guanoni replacing Marino. They're actually a little bit out of sync to the rest of the race, because Marino had a crash earlier in the race, and so this is where we are with endurance racing now. Their strategy will have to change completely. My maths of 10 stints are completely out the window. I've no idea how many stints they're going to do now.
We'll take a wild guess, maybe 14. Let's go for that.
Yeah. So it completely changes the whole dynamic of the race, and you go from racing like these guys are racing here because their stints are in sync, to completely being out of that and coming up with a new plan and a fresh strategy. With Guanoni, very experienced rider, used to racing the Kawasaki team for a lot of years, won a lot of endurance races. Marino's also a very experienced rider, and yeah, they will do their best to fight their way back into this race too.
Yeah, we'll keep a close eye on that, and we'll keep a close eye on this battle for 4th and 5th. It seems that Hugo Claire's just quite happy to just sit there for the time being, as you were just saying there, Taylor, that they're both sort of on a similar strategy, so don't really need to be making any big moves to push each other into, or to maybe push and overdo it, as we saw from Joshua Hook a few moments ago. Now, if you would like to get in touch with us via X or Twitter, I don't know what we're calling it nowadays, we'll call it Twitter, the classic name. You can get in touch with myself, Liam at Liam Hodgins 48, and of course the man to my left, Taylor McKenzie.
Taylor Mac, TAYLOR MOC 77, Taylor Mac 77.
Yeah, I suggest that you'll be wanting to maybe ask Taylor a few more questions than me, because he is the expert in this booth at the moment. I'm just basically here to make sure that everything runs smoothly, as everything sort of just comes into the quiet period now, where the storm has already happened. We've got the quiet before that. And I believe we're going to have a slow-mo of the FCC coming up.
Here we go, yeah. It's difficult to see exactly what he did there. It's quite late on in the corner to lose the front. So at that point, you would imagine he'd actually be releasing the front brake. I do think he's perhaps a fraction wide. Maybe gone in a little bit too fast. And then just as you release the brake, it unweights the front of the bike. And then as that pressure comes off the front tyre, he's lost the front. And yeah, very costly mistake because he was buried so deep in the gravel. Unlucky that it was at a fairly fast corner. He ended up at the edge of the track where the bike went all the way to the edge of the track.
How easy is that to do on a corner like that? Because it's a little bit off camber, a little bit downhill, isn't it?
Yeah, the other thing you have to factor in at this point of his stint is he's got a full tank of fuel, and that completely changes the whole feeling of the bike. If you imagine he's got 24 litres of fuel on board, it's like having a full fuel drum strapped to your tank. And then as the race goes on, that weight starts coming down, and that affects the balance of the bike. These tanks do have baffles inside them to try and stop the fuel moving about so much, so you don't have as much of a difference when the fuel load does start going down. And a lot of the fuel actually goes under the seat in the middle of the bike, so the weight sort of stays fairly balanced in the bike, even with a full tank to an empty tank. However, even with that extra weight, when you're braking hard, that extra force is going to compress the front forks more, and then as you're releasing the brake, it's going to have the opposite effect. So tricky to sort of manage that situation, especially for Josh when he's right in the fight of this race, doing his best to claw his way back to the leaders whilst they're still in touch. So easy mistake to make, and that's why, even though this is endurance racing, crashes do still happen and mistakes are still made, because there's a lot to think about and a lot going on still.
Yeah, as we just saw the slow motion replay of the FCC Honda crash, we've had a change for 4th and 5th. The number 4 of Hugo Claire's finally made his way past Mercado for 4th position, but not dropping the Honda so far. The 333 is right on the wheel tracks there of the Tati team Berger Racing Honda just in front. So as I said a moment ago, it looks like they're quite happy to ride line astern. Just for now, it seems like a cycle race. One leads once and then come back round, and another one leads another, and a little bit out of shape there for the 333 as they come to lap one of the back markers. That's a brave move, heading down towards Eau Rouge and Radillon corner there. I would have my heart in my mouth if I was doing that.
Yeah, it's an amazing corner. I've been lucky enough to stand and watch there at point, and it's an unbelievable corner. It really doesn't do it justice on TV. It flattens it all out and makes it look quite slow in comparison to what it feels like when you're stood on the pit wall watching there.
Yeah, it's a massive climb back up the hill, and you must be full throttle for at least 25 seconds or so, as we see Mercado making a little bit of a mistake, running a little bit deep into Lecombe, losing a few bike lengths to Hugo Claire. But back at the front, we've still got Marvin Fritz beautifully leading the way on the number 1 Yart Yamaha. Don't want to be giving the commentators curse too early, because we remember quite clearly what happened in Le Mans only a few weeks ago, ahead of the 12 Cert Yoshimura Suzuki of Etienne Masson, ahead of the former rider of that team on the number 37 BMW Motorrad machine, Sylvain Guintoli. That's the podium positions so far. Hugo Claire in 4th and Mercado in 5th, the battle we're seeing on screen now. Josh Hook, who did have that crash that we were just talking about a few moments ago, he's down 6th ahead of Kevin Callia on the 111. Then we've got Christian Gamarino on the 11 and 8th ahead of Romero, and battles further back in 9th. And then we've got Martin Renaudin on the 41 Honda, as we're looking at some of the stock riders. This is the battle with the number 9 leading the way for the moment ahead of the 55, 27 and the 44. So they're battling over top stock corners. That's Jan Boun, the German rider, on the number 9, ahead of Valentin Suchet, and of course Philip Steinmeier further back. So this is the battle for the top in the stock class. So we've we'll keep a close eye on this battle as it progresses out. You can tell the difference between the Superbike machines and the stock, especially in the night time, with the colours of the headlights. The Superbike class, if you're just joining us for the first time, you're getting new to endurance racing, has got the white headlights on them, so, and the stock class have got the yellow one. So when it comes to night time, in, well, I'd say about 4 or 5 hours time, maybe a little bit earlier, you can tell the difference between the Superbike and the stock class that way as well. And of course, the red numbers on front of the stock machine. As we've got another overtake for 4th place, Mikado takes over 4th ahead of Hugo Claire. Once again, a swap between 4th and 5th positions.